Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are, whenever you're watching this. This is Floating in Dreams, and today I'm going to be doing my 10 palette review for July. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today we're going to be chatting about the 10 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in July. Now originally I had planned on trying these out already in June, but unfortunately for me, the month of June was just a little bit hectic and I didn't get around to trying all of these. So that's why I decided to roll them into July and try these out. And this will also include some of the newer palettes that I bought this year. So if you saw last week's tier ranking of like expectations of palettes that I'm gonna love or how much I think I'm gonna love these, I filmed that video before I had tried any of these, but yeah, there's I think 9 palettes here that were featured in that video as well. So let's just get cracking. Before we do that, let me introduce myself. My name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I love chatting about eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice reviews, and getting the use out of my makeup. And because I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, I deem myself a snow angel. So if you'd like to join the Snow Angel Club, then please hit subscribe because I would love for you to join my little family. Now that we have all of the announcements out of the way, there's one more thing I need to mention, namely that this is going to be the last video that's going to go live in July, which is a perfect moment to announce that August is going to be eyeshadow palette month on this channel. So every single video, including some of my regular series, are all going to be featuring eyeshadow palette related content. I will still be doing my Shop My Stash and some other things that I always do, chatting about new makeup releases and my monthly haul, things like that. Those I'm just gonna do as normal, but you're going to get some extra content from me, and everything is going to be about eyeshadow palettes. And of course, we're going to build up towards my eyeshadow palette collection. So I'm going to update that for you and show you what I have currently going on in my eyeshadow palette collection. So that's what I have in store for you next month. But now we're reviewing what I was using in this previous month. So let's just get cracking. In case you're unfamiliar with these videos, I like to not go into a particular ranking or anything. These are just the last 10 palettes I tried, and I don't really see merit in ranking them from like my least favorite to my favorite, because I could deem something a favorite, but if there was nothing there that I truly loved, I could say this was my top favorite of this bunch, and then it doesn't really hold much merit. I did rank all of the different color stories in my makeup collection previously, so if you'd like to have a mooch and go back to some older videos, I could link those for you in the description box as well, so that you can see how I would rank certain palettes that I have in my collection. But none of the ones I'm featuring here today are in any of those rankings, because I didn't own any of these yet when I did those videos. First up, we have Kiko Precious Rituals. This is the only palette that wasn't in my tier ranking video, which is why I thought I could do it first. And the reason why I featured this in this sort of like palette tryout is because this was limited edition from Kiko last year, and I decided to keep these over other Kiko products I used to have. And this little Kiko palette was really nice when I first tried it. I just didn't really give it much of another chance afterwards. And since I like getting the use out of my makeup, I didn't just want to I've tried it once and then not go back to it again. So I used this actually and bought it because I was going to do a full face of Kiko, and the entire full face I did was with this Precious Rituals collection. It was a limited edition collection they did last fall. It's got really stunning packaging with this wooden compact, and then you get 4 shades inside it. So you get a really nice blend shade, something for the crease, something to deepen it up, and you get one sort of like satiny shimmer that really ties the look together. The result is a very sort of basic, everyday look. This is great for just throwing on before you go to work, something like that. It really isn't mind-blowing, exciting, but what it does have is some really lovely shades that are perfect for every day, especially if you have a warmer undertone. You're gonna love these. I myself just did a very basic look with it, and I really enjoy the look that came out of it. This is now going to be the Kiko eyeshadow palette that I have in my makeup collection. I like having a full face of Kiko around because it's a brand that I love, and I do regular videos with them. So this is going to be my eyeshadow palette of choice that I decided to keep around for Kiko. Their eyeshadow formulas are nice, but their singles I think are better than their palettes. So for instance, their glitter shadow, which aren't glitters, they're full-on metallics, and also their water eyeshadows, I used to have a couple of those. Those are really interesting, cool formulas, but in the palettes, it's a bit like so-so. It's good quality, definitely great for everyday, but not something that is going to give you a lot of variety or versatility, which is what I always look for in a palette. And then we're gonna have to chat about some Midas Cosmetics. And Midas Cosmetics was a brand I still wanted to try. They have since closed down, and I got 2 of their palettes in their closing down sales. Someone bought these for me. They were like super discounted, and Midas Cosmetics was one of those brands where you had to pay an outrageous amount for shipping and handling fees if you weren't in the US. So it was a bit of a difficult one to buy from, but I decided to get the Unveiled Cool Neutrals and the Smokey Glow palette. And we'll talk about the Unveiled Cool Nudes, not Cool Neutrals, Unveiled Cool Nudes first. And I remember getting this home and thinking, but that isn't cool toned. Now, I think this can be cool toned if you have a very deep undertone, but against my fair skin, this definitely pulled very warm toned. We even get like something mustardy and something more golden tone in here. The only thing that was very cool toned was that shade in the middle, but everything else I didn't feel was all that cool toned on me. Did it make for a really stunning, more sultry glam eye? I really liked it. It was very perfect. I wore this on quite a hot summer day. And I wore it all day, and it stayed put really nicely. I mean, I can't fault it. I thought that the way these went on was better than in the Smokey Glow, so that's why we're talking about that secondly. But I also felt there was some overlap. I mean, it's only a 9 pan, and whether I put this one on or this one on, it didn't make a whole lot of a difference. So I was able to pull a really stunning look out of it, but I've said it in my tier ranking video as well. By the time I got these home and I tried them, I was sort of wondering, why did I even buy these? I'm glad I got to try the formula. This neutral formula I felt was better than the one in the Smokey Glow palette. The mattes were super blendable and easy to work with. The shimmers were really fun to play around with. I pulled a stunning look out of it, but this is not something that I need to keep around in my collection. And then the Smokey Glow palette, I already mentioned several times just now that I felt the other palette was better quality, and that I think has to do with the shade selection. So the Smokey Glow palette was released in collaboration with the YouTube channel Smokey Glow. Hannah is the name of the creator. I think she doesn't really do much beauty related content anymore. She seems to have shifted her content completely to a commentary channel, and that's just something that I don't watch a lot of, so that's why I haven't really watched a lot of her videos lately. But yeah, this is what her palette with Midas Cosmetics looks like. It's sort of like pinky purpley shades with a couple of neutrals. And to be quite fair, I really didn't like the formula of this. And that's something I had predicted just based on swatching it. The mattes felt a little bit dry and the shimmers were a little lackluster. In here, especially now that I've used it, I mean, I did 2 really nice looks with it. I think they looked pretty, but I didn't really feel like the mattes in here were as great to work with as in the Cool Nudes. These were a little bit dusty, a little bit powdery. I was able to build them up just fine and get a seamless blend, so they're workable shadows, but there's just so many other eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection that I feel work better, that can give me similar looks. And especially the shimmers in here I felt were very lackluster. In terms of shimmers, there was really only one, and I'm actually contemplating taking this one out and repressing it into a pan. It's the shade Group Chat, because that's a really lovely duochrome. It's a pink to golden flip. It was a very nice, pretty, like, toppery shade, and that one shade saved the palette for me. I felt that this purple was very sort of like sugary almost. You know how some shimmers can have this very sort of grainy, loose texture like sugar? Granulated sugar, that's what I felt this did, and it didn't really come together on the eyes. The other shimmers were all just a little bit lackluster, and this white shade has a blue undertone, and everything in here is quite warm toned, so I really don't understand why they went with a white with a blue flip inner corner highlight / transformer shade. This is too yellow toned. This is this was nice as a transition. I did like that quite a bit. And then these like brighter shades were fun to play around with, but I don't really feel it adds much to my collection at all. And Again, glad I got to try Midas Cosmetics. This palette received a lot of hype when it was released, but I kind of now go like, what was the fuss all about? But yeah, I got to try it, and that's, you know, fun, and I was able to play around with it and create some pretty looks with it. So I do like some of the shades in here, but as a palette for me, it just doesn't quite come together. And then also in this roundup are two palettes from Adept, the Plain Jane Remastered and the Ninhydrin. So I'm going to start us off with the Plain Jane Remastered. Now, Adept Cosmetics is a brand I had heard a lot of people raving about, but they are a little bit harder to buy from. So I decided to sort of bite the bullet when both of these palettes were in stock. The Ninhydrin was definitely on the wish list, but this one I kind of like threw in just to give the formula a bit of a chance. And the Plain Jane Remastered is their revamped edition of their original Plain Jane. Adept Cosmetics is actually a brand that I know from Hannah Louise Poston's channel. She has a lot of the Adept singles, which is something they don't seem to do anymore, I think. And they also do these really large single palettes. So I believe that if you're in the US, you can buy them through Amazon as well, but they don't ship to Europe through there. If you want to buy it, if you're in the EU, you're gonna have to go through their official website. They have a number of palettes out now ever since they discontinued their singles line, and it seems like they're just putting some of their singles in their palettes, to me anyways. The Plain Jane Remastered is a shimmer heavy palette. There isn't a single matte in this entire palette, and that had me worried a little bit in terms of how are these going to play together? Can I pull looks out of this? Or is it going to be one of those like, it's great if I use like a matte shade in the crease and then I can use this to like pull it in for like the occasional shade. That was what I thought this palette was gonna give me. But then I actually started using it. I did two looks with this palette, one more focused around this warm tone, because for some reason this warm tone, even though I'm not a warm tone like lover at all, but that warm tone just really stood out to me, and it is one of these standout shades in this palette for sure. The first look I did, I wasn't too happy with. I feel like I could have used a couple of fewer shades than I actually ended up doing. But I wanted to make sure I used as many of these shades as I could. But then I did a look as well with some of these like purpley shades down here. And that look, oh wow, it really, really just gave me the feels. Like it was just really stunning, very shimmer heavy quality, very ethereal looking. And when I started using this palette, I got this brainwave of like putting a shimmer like all the way from like here in the inner corner up towards the brow bone, which is something I sometimes do, and it really nicely brightens up and like opens the eye even more because I have quite deep set hooded eyes. So I love doing that, and I was like, oh, so what I loved about this one is that it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I ended up liking this a lot more than I did. Is this going to be my favorite everyday palette? No, especially because it is more difficult to create full-on looks with it, but that pinky purple number that I did, I was very happy with, and those are the kind of looks I live for. And then we have the Ninhydrin, and this is my favorite of the two, precisely because it has two mattes, and this, save for that like weird yellow gold shade in the middle, I love every single shade in here. It is absolutely stunning. We get two perfect crease shades and a bunch of purples, greens, and some other lovely shades. We get some really lovely duochromes in here. The Plain Jane Remastered as well, but I felt that when I put those on the lid, I felt some of the flips didn't really like stand out too much, maybe because it was all shimmer to begin with. But with this, I mean, you have a really nice like more mauve toned one that goes really well with like these shades over here, and then you have this mustard shade that goes really well with some of these shades over here. So you can do a full-on purple look with this. You can do something with a bit of green, a bit of blue. I mean, I just thought that this was definitely a bit more unique, and this got the creative juices flowing even more. And I was like, oh, but I can do this and I can do that. And all of a sudden I had all of these ideas that I can also do with this palette after trying to do two looks with it. So this is definitely one that I know is going to stay around in my collection for a while. If I want a good shimmer, then these two palettes are definitely my go-to nows. Really lovely, really stunning formula. It does have, like the shimmers do have a bit of a slip to it, which I'm not always a fan of. But in these palettes, it works really well, I feel. They pick up well with a brush, and I was able to pull stunning looks out of it for sure. So that's why the Adept Cosmetics Plain Jane, but especially the Ninhydrin, are now definitely going to be like a staple in my collection. And then we have some Unearthly Cosmetics in here as well. I decided to put the Fall Magic in this review so that I had all these palettes together in one roundup. So let me start off with the brightest offering here. And we have the Unearthly Cosmetics Strawberry Milkshake eyeshadow palette. In case you're unfamiliar with the brand, they used to be called Alien Cosmetics. I have a couple of their older palettes from before they rebranded, but they've kept a couple of the older ones around and just put a different name on the packaging. And they also did something to their pan sizes. So my old palettes have round pans, and the quality feels very different when you swatch it. So I was very, very curious to see whether I still liked the formula, and I have to say I really did. This is a really fun, bright pop of something sort of palette. We get these greens and yellows in the middle, we get some pinks and reds, and then we have this really pretty lavender shade, a pink shimmer, a pink matte, and like a neutral to blend things out with. I think I did 2 looks with this palette, and I mean, these are not for the faint of heart. If you don't like eyeshadows that stain, then stay away, because I only had one of these looks on my face for like a hot minute, and then I switched it around to do the next look with it, and those pinks and reds, they stain your lids, I can tell you that. But that red shimmer is just life. I really liked it. It's a really good red shimmer. This pink shimmer is really good too. I just think it's a really fun, bright shade, like bright eyeshadow palette for the summertime. I don't really see how you can do a lot of mixing and matching between some of the shades though. So I did do a look where I used the greens and then the pink all over the lid, which I thought looked really stunning. I like that juxtaposition of the green and the pink, but you have to be very careful, because the minute you would blend a little too much, these greens and the undertones of these pinky reddish shades do start to muddy together a little bit, and you just get a really murky dark shade. So you have to be careful with placement and not blend too much if you want to mix the greens and the reds and the pinks that you get in here. But yeah, this lavender shade I love too. Some really good, like stunning shimmer shades that feel very thin when you swatch them, but with a brush and with a finger application, I had no issues using the Strawberry Milkshake palette. So this is definitely a good one for me. If you like bright shades, this is a good one. And then we have the Lore palette, and this was one I was very excited for. I didn't think though that once I opened this up I was gonna love it as much. I had seen some people raving about this, namely Karen Harris really loves this palette, but I was like, it's a bunch of warm tone neutrals and then we just have these shimmers. I was a little unsure about the color story until I tried it, and I was like, oh. So I did a look with some of like the greens and the teals and some of the neutrals, and then I also did a look more so with these like neutral tones over here. So those are the 2 looks I did with the palette, and I found out that as I was using this is my perfect summertime color story, because it's warm tone neutrals with a pop of teal, which I had not realized, because these look very sort of like pink berry heavy, but they're really pretty warm tones, and I'm not sure what happens to this shade when it goes into my lid, but where it looks like a plum in the, like a burgundy plum shade in the pan, on me it just looked like a really nice reddish tone brown. It looked really pretty on, and then these 2 shimmers are really lovely. You can go a little bit more flippy with this, because both of these pinks have a different like flip to them. One is a bit more of like a green flip, and this one has a bit more of a blue flip. So this is a bit more cool toned, this is a bit more warm toned. That orange shade was really lovely when I blended it out. So in a way, this palette reminds me a little bit of the experience I had with the Juvia's Place Festival palette, which is also a palette I can look at and go like, what am I supposed to do with it? But then I use it, and then those bright oranges and reds that palette has blend out into perfect crease shades for me. And I felt that that also happened with this one. It just blended perfectly. The shimmers were really fun. And this is just my summertime color story in a nutshell. Warm tone neutrals with a pop of greeny teals. That's just what I love for the summertime. So that's why this one ended up being a good one for me. But my favorite of the three I have here is the Fall Magic for sure. So the Fall Magic was restocked a little bit later than those two were, which is why I got it a bit later, but I decided to rope it in together. And I still wanted this because it just looks like such a perfect color story for the fall time. Granted, I was using this in the summertime, and I felt it worked for the summer as well, because again, we get some warm tones, and then we get these like teal shades, so I was happy with like the way this came together. We get some really stunning, flaky, shimmery shades. Mine came broken, but because it had a plastic cover, they stayed in the pan pretty much, so I could repress them dry, and the brand did refund me when I showed them the pictures. This is a palette that you can do like something very smoky, warm tone with that brown and like the oranges, but then you have that nice little teal to sort of round it out. You can go a little bit more mauve-y plum as well if you'd like to, and then you can go a little bit more cool tone neutral if you'd like to. So there are options here. I think I did 3 different looks with this palette, and I think it was the 3 looks I just explained to you that I did. The only thing I would change here is this matte. It looks like a mauve-y pink, but it is a very sort of warm, dusty rose shade. So I felt that if that had been a little less warm toned, I would have liked this palette even more, and I would have gotten even more options, because I feel that this is a little bit cooler than this is. So for me, not all of the shades play together the way I had expected to, but the shades were stunning. The shimmer formula in here is lovely. And even though this also has some of those grainy shades that feel a little sugary, these do really nicely come together once you put them on the eye, which the Midas Cosmetics didn't do. So yeah, Fall Magic from Unearthly Cosmetics. They still do it, and you want to try the brand, then this is the one that I would recommend, because I think it's going to just give you a lot of options that can go neutral, but you can also make it more colorful if you'd like to. And you know me, I like a versatile palette, and this one you can pull in so many different directions. I can easily think up another 3 looks I can do with this, so that's why for me this is a good one. Finally, we need to chat about 2 Blend Bunny Cosmetics palettes. So when they launched the Dollhouse early at the start of the year, I think this came out in January, the Surge was also in stock, and I was like, I can buy these 2 together and try the brand for the first time. So the Dollhouse palette is one that I was suspecting was going to be my favorite of the 2. It's not. I think I like the Surge better. Let me tell you why. So the Dollhouse palette is the release from Blend Bunny Cosmetics that really drew me into the brand. They do these kind of palettes. I think their new Primal palette actually has like 2 big shades at the bottom, and you just get the gradient from there. But all of their palettes have gradients. The Dollhouse is the first palette that has 2 rows of shimmers, which is here and here. The other palettes, as you will see in the search, only have 1 row of shimmers. So I was happy we got some more shimmer options in here, because I like shimmers. And then what they also do is that they sort of have like a full row of like really deep tones, something more mid-tone, and then your blend shades. I think the name Blend Bunny kind of speaks for itself there. And this, when it was released, I looked at it and I was like, that looks like a really pretty cool toned eyeshadow palette. It's not as cool toned as it looks. So there are some stunning cool tones in this palette, but there are rows or shades, especially in the shimmers, that just aren't that cool toned. This pinky shade is very warm toned. This is very warm toned. This is very warm toned. So for me, the way it all came together, again, stunning looks, but what this palette is missing, according to me, is a good neutral, cool toned shimmer shade. Because this row here or this row here could have gone perfectly with a taupe shimmer, and I feel that if it had that, I would like this palette a lot more. And also if this was a little bit more, like this is more of a rose gold once I put it on the eyes. I mean, it was stunning, but then also this pinky shade that it goes with also has a golden flip to it. So again, if that had a little bit more coolness to it, the palette would have come together a bit better for me. But I did 3 looks with it, had no issues playing with this. Great blendability, like these shades just blended seamlessly with no effort. Some of the shades, however, are quite deep, especially this row. I felt that this matte, for instance, was a little bit too deep for what I like using in the crease. I went with it, I blended it out, I was able to make it work. But then there's a pretty big gap, I feel, between some of the shades here and here, with this being just a touch too light and this being a little bit too deep, and then this is even deeper. So I could never put these in the crease. And another issue I often have with shades like this is that they all look identical, like a black, once I put them on my eyes. And with this, I feel I was able to get some distinctness there, but I do feel that you can't really see. In one of the looks I did, I went with a bit of a halo eye, using some of the greens in this row. And this darkest, deepest shade, it could have been a black as well. Like, it had a little bit of something there, but I think in the pictures, it's just a dark shade. So that was a bit of a shame. Then I did a look with like these neutrals and the purples. That's what I did a look with. This purple ended up not being as blue toned as I had expected in the pan, so I ended topping it up with this blue shade, and that made it a little bit more of like a purple with a blue flip, which I thought was very pretty. So you can mix and match these, you can sort of customize it and sort of play with it. And then I think I did a look with these two rows here, so the more rosy shades as well, and then the greens with some of these browns. That's what I ended up doing for looks. But yeah, really stunning shades. It is quite dark and sultry though, so I think if you have very fair skin, this may be too deep for you, or you would only get use out of the top two rows. If you are even like more fair skinned than I am and you really don't like a lot of light, dark shades, then this may not be a good one. But if you're like me and you like some cool tones with some warm tones, some really good neutral shades that are just going to give you a lot of options, and you can go very neutral every day and you can make it very smoky and you can get creative, then you'll like this. But for me, this palette is also a little bit too big for what I really like. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I hadn't bought from Blend Buddy before. Just the sheer amount of shades that you get in here. I mean, for me, 30 shades is just a bit much. So I really don't need it. I felt that this could have been more curated, and some of the shades need to be swapped out. And then this would have been perfect. So yeah, I like it, but it's not the top favorite that I was hoping it was going to be. The palette of the two here that I actually preferred now that I've used it is the Surge. Because the Surge, I was like, colorful eyeshadow palette, I'm not entirely sure. But the reason why I bought this one is because I actually decluttered quite a few of my rainbow palettes this year, because I was like, I don't really use them, and once you have a rainbow palette, you kind of have them all. And with bright shades, I feel very often that a lot of things on the market are very similar. This is a bright palette, or a colorful palette I should say, that has a rainbow color story, but that isn't just a bunch of mid-tone brights. And that's why I ended up picking this, and I ended up loving playing with this. I mean, it was stunning. I did some really cool looks with this, and I mean, the row of neon shades at the bottom really worked. The look I'm wearing right now with these lovely greens is all of these shades, and then I popped that yellow in the inner corner, and I also pulled in some of these browns, like this one and that golden shade. That's what's on my lower lash line. So that's the look I'm wearing today. I also did a look with these pinks and purples with like the neon. I was trying to use it as a blend shade. It worked, it just doesn't look as fun and vibrant as it does in the pan here. And then I did a bit of a sort of half cut crease kind of moment with the tealy blues. And you know, if it's got a teal, then I gotta use it, you know? So yeah, I had a lot of fun playing around with the Surge. I do feel that here the darker shades aren't as samey as in the Dollhouse. I felt that these were more distinct. Like when I put this one on, you can really see that it had a blue quality to it. With this one, you can really see that it has a green. So I felt that these were a little bit successful for me. So you have those lovely grungy shades. You have a full row of shimmers, which are a little lackluster. I have to say that the shimmer formula in these I don't love as much as some of the other shimmer formulas I'm talking about today. These also have that very gel-like sort of texture. When you stick your brush in, you actually will make a dent in the pan, which I don't mind, but it's just, I don't know, these are a little bit difficult to pick up, and then when you really have to go on with a finger to make them like fully like intense. And I don't always feel like I need to be able to do that with a shimmer for it to be a good shimmer. So the shimmers are a little lacking in here, and also I feel we don't get all of the lovely undertones that I would want. I was definitely pressed at a certain moment. I was like, oh, I want to put another shimmer there, and then I had to stick a matte there because I didn't really, I wasn't able to find a good enough like shimmer shade that would go in that place, that would go with the color story. But yeah, you do get everything to blend it out. If you're in the market for a fun, colorful eyeshadow palette that is rainbow technically, but that isn't like your classic mid-tone rainbow with just a bunch of brights, then this one, the Surge from Blend Buddy Cosmetics, is one that's really fun to play around with. And you can do some really stunning looks with it. And because it is a little bit more grungy leaning, I think it's also a great way for you to try out bright shades, because you can go full on bright with this, but you don't have to. You can actually go in with those murky, darker shades and make some really grungy looks as well. So I love that this has the colorful shades, but also the grunge. And that's why I think this is a little bit more unique in my collection than the Dollhouse, which is why I now actually think that I rate this more highly. So that's it, there you have it. Those are my 10 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in July. So let me know in a comment down below what your eyeshadow palette picks were for the month. What did you try out? I would love to know. And for now, if you could thumbs up the video if you liked it, that would greatly help me out. And please subscribe to my channel. As mentioned at the start of the video, I will be doing nothing but eyeshadow palette related content in the month of August. So I hope you like to stay tuned for more, and I hope to see you in my next video.